Welcome to Living Scripture, sacred space to enter into the essence of revealed knowledge. Today we are studying a very unique verse from our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, a very deep, profound book called Ujjvala-nīlamaṇi, or Blazing Sapphire, composed by Srila Rupa Goswami. This is a book, it's a detailed study of romantic divine love. It's one of the deepest, highest works of this theologian called Sri Rupa. And here we find a very unique verse among many other unique verses on this particular occasion, which highlights the sweetness, the humility, the compassion, and the unconditional love of the divine, of the sweet absolute, for each one of us. In particular, in this case, it speaks about how God reciprocates with those who reciprocate with Him, who love Him, who are His servants and His lovers. So the verse says like this: vasaṁ alpikayāpi sevayāmuṁ vihite āgasi duḥsahe smitāsyam para-duḥkha-lave kātaraṁ hariṁ udvīkṣya tanoti tṛṣṇām. Ujjvala-nīlamaṇi, Blazing Sapphire, 10:4. Translation: Seeing Hari, captivated by even a little service, smiling even when intolerable offenses are made against him, and deeply distressed by even the slightest pain in another, my heart thirsts for him. Beautiful verse. Beautiful verse which addresses the divine as Hari, or he who takes away, he who steals one's heart, he who takes away all that gets in the way of our heart being stolen by divine love. And here, three particular attributes of the divine are mentioned, which made the author feel my mind, my heart thirsts for him. I'm longing for such a personality. Why? Because first, he's captivated by even a little service. Second, he smiles even when intolerable offenses are committed against him. And third, he is deeply pained, distressed by witnessing the pain of other people. So here we have someone who is very grateful, captivated by even a little service. Someone who is very humble, which is not taking personal offense even when offended. And third, someone who is extremely merciful and compassionate, whose heart is deeply affected by witnessing the pain in another's heart. So putting all these things together, gratefulness, humility, and compassion of the divine, the author says, my heart longs for him. So this is one of many sections in traditional Gaudiya Vaishnava scripture where these qualities are highlighted. We ourselves as practitioners are invited to culture these qualities, right? Gratefulness, humility, respect, compassion. But we have to pay attention that the sweet absolute, God himself, is leading the way. So whenever we hear the divine asking us to do that, it's because first of all, he's leading by example. That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yad yada charati shreshtas tattha vitarojana. Whatever great personalities do, other people follow. So he is the greatest personality. So whenever he's inviting us to follow, he's already leading by example. Gratefulness, leading by example in terms of humility, leading by example in terms of generosity, compassion. So the first part of this verse, speaking about vasaṁ alpikayāpi sevayāmuṁ, even with some alpi, very small type of seva, of services offered to God, to the divine, to Krishna, we will call him in our tradition Sri Gaurasundar. There are so many names, so many forms of the unlimited. He becomes captivated by that. Not only he acknowledges the offering, you follow my point. Not only he acknowledges, okay, thank you, offering acknowledged, service registered, box checked, he becomes appreciative, he becomes captivated by someone who offers one's heart, even in some small way. That's why Krishna says in the Gita that whatever progress is made in this path, even if it's small, there's no loss nor diminution. And one will be protected from the greatest danger. Again, the word alpa is there. Even if one is making some small progress, some small offering, if it comes with heart, if it comes with sincerity, God becomes captured by that. He's, let's use this strong word, he's addicted to love, addicted to showing mercy, addicted in the good sense of the term to reciprocate with each of us. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is the sequel, the previous, not the sequel, Ujjvala-nīlamaṇi is the sequel of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This first work, Srila Rupa Goswami proclaims that if a devotee, a servant, the lover of the divine, even offers just some water, a few tulsi leaves, as we hear in the tradition, our tradition from Advaita Acharya, the sweet absolute, moved by love, places himself under the control of that devotee. That's why Krishna says in the Gita, flower, fruit, water, I don't care about that. But bhaktya, bhakti, 2 times in the verse the word bhakti comes, devotion, heart. Give me your heart and then do whatever you want, so to say. That's the spirit of the verse. As long as your heart is present in the offering, I don't see anything else. I don't care for how fancy is the ingredient, the size, the color of the external presentation, as long as the size and the color of your heart is in the right place. So similarly here in this verse of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu says, even a little water, a few tulsi leaves, again, that's nothing externally. Water, a few leaves that you can get anywhere, again, the same as the Gita, patram pushpam phalantyam. But if the heart is in the proper place, prayatatmanaha, as Krishna says, is one consciousness, one intention, is honest, sincere. God not only acknowledges the offering, God not only receives the offering. If I offer him an apple, he does not only accept it, take it in his hand, he eats it. And in this verse of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it says, he becomes captivated by that. The technical Sanskrit in this verse is vikrinite swam atmanam. So Jiva Goswami comments on this verse, clarifying, actually vikrinite swam atmanam means God, swam atmanam, swam means one's own, atmanam means soul, self, and vikrinite means here sell, to sell. So vikrinite and atmanam means God sells his very self. He sells his soul to such a devotee, to someone who offers him a little water, a little leaf. Not metaphorically, existentially, he's selling himself. The infinite becomes owned by love. That's the degree of his gratitude. That's the degree of his love. That's the degree of his gratefulness. In one commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentioned that Krishna, the sweet absolute, is grateful in advance for the offerings that his devotees will give him in the future. Imagine. He's not just grateful for whatever one may be trying to give God in the here and now, whatever one has offered to him in the past. He's grateful in advance for the things that in potential we can offer and that we will be offering to him. Try to imagine that degree of generosity, that degree of gratefulness. So that's what this verse is addressing in this first line. Hari is captivated by even a little service, which means even a little service externally, but contains our heart, can capture the divine. That's the little way of Therese that leads to in Christian tradition, the little way. I may do something externally insignificant, but through that I can offer my whole self. Then vihite āgasi, duḥsahe smitāsyam. Hari smiles when even intolerable offenses are made against him. He's not taking anything personal. He's the most humble of the people. In one sense, you cannot be humble if you don't have anything to be proud about, so to say. So the sweet absolute God has lots of reasons to be proud about, in the sense of he's the supreme person, he owns everything, so much degree of control and power. You could we really get proud about all that stuff, even when we have it in very infinitesimal quantity. What to speak when you have an endless capacity for that. Still, he's perfectly humble. So that's the meaning of humility. You have reasons to become proud, but actually in the depths, you have no reason to become proud. Whatever happens makes you more and more humble. So the verse says, no, he smiles even when intolerable offenses are made against him. Don't think that being God is an easy job, right? Not everyone likes that person. People offend God, people deny God, people reject God, people insult God, people offend the divine. In our particular tradition, we have this very telling, tense narrative in the Bhagavatam and in other places where Bhrigu, a great sage, he kicks this chest of Vishnu, of God. He does some other mischief before, as requested as he was, not to blame Bhrigu, please. And at one point, he arrives to the abode of the divine, Vishnu, the all-pervasive one. He kicks the chest of God. Can you imagine? You are received in transcendence in the spiritual world, but God himself, and how you react? Kicking his chest. So how does the divine reply to that? He's not retaliating. He's not attacking. He's not condemning. He's not reducing Bhrigupad to ashes. There's one beautiful verse, which for some of us may sound exaggeration, but it's actually the genuine feelings coming from God's heart in his words with perfect humility. So he prays in return to Bhrigu, he who kicked his chest. And he says, please purify me, my realm, and the realms of the gods by blessing us with the water that has washed your foot, which happened to kick my chest. He didn't say that, but those are those same feet, right? So this water from those feet, remember, that kicked his chest a few seconds ago, makes all sacred places sacred. So today, the sweet absolute says, I become the exclusive shelter of the goddess of fortune by receiving the dust of your feet. No, I have become exclusive shelter of the goddess of fortune. Why? Because your foot has sanctified my chest. No, or some editions will say, the contact of your foot has got rid of all my offenses. So try to imagine such a sweet, humble, divine that is described in this verse and many other verses. And in this way, from many other stories, the divine is asking, is praying for the dust of the feet of his devotees. Or when the devotees are reciprocating loving God, the sweet absolute feels, whatever I do back, I'm eternally indebted. I cannot reciprocate with their love. Swadhana atriptam. Even if I give myself completely in charity to them, atriptam, I'm dissatisfied because I feel I cannot give enough. When Draupadi was being disrobed and she cried for Govinda, a name for the divine, he told her, since the moment I heard that crying out, my heart has entered into a debt that I cannot repay with you. There's one purport in the Bhagavatam that Jiva Goswami also paraphrases the sweet absolute, saying, let me be purified by the dust of my devotees' lotus feet to atone for my failure to not fully reciprocate their love, to atone for my failure in attempting to fully reciprocate their love. May their lotus, the dust of their feet, purify me for failing and reciprocating properly. Anubrajamyaham nityam pujayetyangrirenu bihi. Arguably my favorite verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, what Krishna, the sweet absolute, says, I long to follow in the footsteps of my lovers and servants, and I wish to be purified by the dust of their lotus feet. I perpetually follow into their footsteps. Anubrajamyaham nityam. Forever I follow wherever they go. I walk behind them, serving them, and I worship the dust of their lotus feet. So that's the second line of this verse, where God is described as smiling even when intolerable offenses are committed against him. And finally, para-duḥkha-lave kātaraṁ. He experiences deep suffering when seeing the suffering of others, deeply distressed by even the slightest pain in another. Again, lave api. slight pain in someone, he feels deeply distressed. It seems disproportionate, but no. When we understand that God is Karuna Sindhu, Kripamai, an ocean of mercy, he's made of grace and compassion. That's how he feels. He's not impassible. He's not insensitive to anyone's suffering. He not only empathizes with the suffering of his lovers, but he can understand, even though he's not experiencing the suffering of being a conditioned being. He's smart enough, sensitive enough to understand how we may be suffering in conditioned life and empathize with that and make the corresponding arrangements. So all the things put together, all these qualities of gratefulness, remember, no? God captivated even by a little service, selling himself to that person, giving himself. A God of deep humility, being insulted, denied, offended, and responding with praise, with honor, with affection. And a God of compassion and mercy, which where he witnesses even the slightest pain and he takes it as its own. He identifies, he can empathize, connect, and make the necessary arrangements to provide the needed auspiciousness for us to move forward. That's a God worth of believing. That's the only God I can believe in. If sometimes people tell me I don't believe in God, and I ask them, so who is God for you? And they basically describe the opposite of this verse. So when they say that, I say, I totally agree with you. I don't believe in that God either. That God does not exist, cannot exist. That's a contradiction to the very idea of what the divine is. So do we want to embrace a believable notion of the sweet absolute versus like the one we are studying today is offering us a golden opportunity. Seeing Hari captivated by even a little service, smiling even when intolerable offenses are made against him, and deeply distressed by even the slightest pain in another, my heart thirsts for him. So that's the natural conclusion. When all these qualities are properly put into context, bring together, we have a realistic, believable, and not only that, charming, worthy of our taste and our longing and our thirst idea of the divine. And we can engage in spiritual life, we can engage in practice with a proper notion of God, and therefore a realistic relationship to be developed between him and each one of us. So some thoughts, of course, so much more can be said. Each one of these verses are endless, bottomless oceans of wisdom. So I trust that you at home will continue doing your homework and continue to extract and continue the excavation project we have begun here together. And see you next week for our next episode of Living Scripture, and how to realize how the livingness of Scripture and how we can be found ourselves living in the essence of it. See you next week.